All right, welcome back. Welcome to our Language of the Prophets series. This week we are dealing with Torah portion Yitro, and that's one of Moses' fathers-in-law, called Jethro, usually in English. That's his Midianite bride, is from Yitro, and he plays prominently in this Torah portion. We will be going over the first Aliya as part of our class. If my slide wants to change. Come on, let's go change. There we go. Wow, look at those effects. And the first Aliya is in Shemot, chapter 18, verse 1 through chapter 18, verse 12. And you guys, students, feel free to talk today. This is not like the the Shabbat Drashot, where there's no audio allowed. You can do audio or type in the chat if you like. Let me see, where'd my chat box go? Make sure that I see your comments if you want to do it that way. Okay, got it. Boom. Great. All right. Trying to get the computer to advance. It's thinking about it. There we go. Okay, so let's get into the Torah portion. The Aliyah, let's see, we have Vayishma Yitro Chohen Midyan Choten Moshe Et Kol Asher Asa Elohim LeMoshe UleYisrael Amo. Okay, that's our Etmachta. Okay, and looks like I advanced the slide by accident. So I'll do that. The computer's considering putting up. There we go. Thank you, computer, for cooperating with us. All right, so let's look at this. So surely you know Shema, and this is an imperfect form, and I'm slowly exposing you to what the scholars call it. They call this a Wayiktal form. Right? Well, actually, usually Wayiktol. This is different because it ends in an ayin, right? So it's the wa because of the vav, and then we have yiktal here, but oftentimes it'd be yiktol, like yishmor. The ayin changes it. That's why we have a patach here instead. So then Yitro heard, or when is probably better here for the vav. When Yitro, the Kohen of Midian, the father-in-law, that's what Choten means, father-in-law of Moshe. So here we have a construct chain here. We have another construct chain here. It cannot be one continuous construct chain. Does anybody know why? Why it has to be a broken set of two construct chains? I'll go ahead and mark them while you're thinking about that. Just going to overline the chains. Yeah, maybe we'll do our box, why not? Boom, like that. So the reason this cannot be a continuous chain is because you have a proper noun right there, right? And you cannot have a proper noun in the construct. Proper nouns, that is names, they only exist in the absolute form for nouns. There is no construct form for a proper noun. So you can't say the priest of the Midian of the bridegroom, sorry, it's the same word, of the father-in-law of Moshe. You have to say the priest of Midian, comma, the father-in-law of Moshe. That's who Yitro is. This is all in a positive. Like in English, we'd say Yitro, comma, all that stuff, comma, right? That's what all that is. So then Yitro, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moshe, heard, Shema. What did he hear? Telling us what he heard. Kol asher asa Elohim. Everything which Elohim did. And for those of you who are in the Hebrew literacy chat app what's it called? The Telegram app. If you've got the Telegram app, this is for. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to, this is just for my Hebrew students. Then please get that app, and then you can participate throughout the week. You guys can help each other over there, or whatever medium you like to help. You can stay and do it where you like. And but if I see something there and I want to jump in, I'll jump in. Or you can also ask me questions, and when I have the time, I'll answer those. And as I have thoughts with my own Bible studies that I think you might find interesting, I'll be sharing it over there. Maybe something from Proverbs, something from right now. I'm doing readings in Proverbs, Psalms, and First Samuel. So and also Joshua sometimes trailing. So there'll be stuff as I come across interesting stuff. I'll throw it your way over there. Maybe that'll be interesting to you, even if it's a bit advanced. We recently had an interesting Kativ Kare thing regarding, regarding hemorrhoids and how the scribes wrote the word was written as hemorrhoids, but the tradition they had memorized it as something different, something a little bit less offensive, like boils or tumors. And so the pointing for the word for hemorrhoids is actually that of tumors instead. And so it ended up producing an impossible way to read the word. So the word started with an ayin and then had a vocal schwa under it, which is not allowed. An ayin cannot take a regular vocal schwa. And so that's kind of the indicator that the scribes had made kind of an impossible form there, right? When they didn't want to change the text, they revered the text, so instead they just put the vowels of the word that's supposed to be read, and in the margin, they'll write, actually, this is the word I want you to read here. Read tumors, right? So, all right, so continuing on. Yeah,
Question.
go ahead, go ahead.
In that section in First Samuel,
Yes.
Ophel is the tumor, and then Tsiporah is the hemorrhoids.
This is interesting. Some lexicons put it that way. Really, even if it is true that it's got this nuance, okay, the second word, it means tumors. But if it's in the context of the anus, then it means hemorrhoids. It's like saying tumors of the anus, right? Like that. And so it can have the meaning of hemorrhoids also, but it has a wider arching meaning in that it can also mean tumors. That's why if you keep reading in the text, not too far after that, when they decide to make golden globlets to send back to the Bnei Israel on the Ark of the Covenant. This is the Philistines. What they do is we actually have the word in the text that's the kare for the previous sections. Because how would they make it golden hemorrhoids, right? It just wouldn't make a lot of sense. So they make golden tumors and golden mice and they send that back. Right? Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it's like the word malacha, right? Like malacha means generally work, right? Any kind of work. It's an overarching term for work. And a lot of times Hebrew will have these types of terms where they have two meanings. They have an overarching term and they have a very specific meaning, very, very specific. And so in the case of the kare there, that is, it can both be overarching, so it can mean any kind of growth, like any kind of thing that looks like a tumor, like a bulging growth. But when it gets nailed down, it can be
Mm.
specifically hemorrhoids. Just like malacha can be any kind of work, or we can mean just white collar work, like projects type of work, like planning, that kind of thing. That's why the Torah sometimes will say avodah and malacha, right? Don't do any of your labor, avodah, or any of your malacha, like your thinking kind of work, right? Like sitting in an air conditioned office working on a computer on Shabbat, right? It's also malacha, right? But you see, so it can be either overarching or very specific, depending on the context. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good, cool. Yeah, so that's what's happening there. Okay, so that's just kind of an example of what you guys can get over there. We'll be sharing stuff like that, and so it's just a little bit more exposure to different texts than just what we have in class. And as I find something interesting, or if you find something interesting, you can also throw it over there in your own readings, and everybody can discuss it. Okay, and I absolutely loathe Facebook, so this is part of me not having to get involved with Facebook. So all right, so let's continue. Everything which God did. And actually, this is what made me think of our Hebrew literacy chat room in Telegram. Is that recently I shared with you guys over there, where the Philistines, when they use the word Elohim, even though it's referring to the God of Israel, the verbs and the other words, the pronouns that they use to modify Elohim, to agree with Elohim, are in the plural. They're in the plural, right? So, for example, they use the pronoun Haim, referring to God. And this is interesting because it's a little tidbit where you can see the nuance in the Hebrew language, where the Philistines still believe that it was the gods of Israel that were afflicting them, you see? They didn't get the idea that there's just a God. They believe it's their gods, and so that's why they use Haim, meaning they, right? The demonstrative pronoun for those ones, and so it's kind of interesting. And then when they'll use a verb, it'll be in the plural, even though it refers to Elohim. Whereas when Israel uses a verb referring to our Elohim, it's in the singular, like here, asa. See, singular. So this is really nice apologetic if you deal with college types or whatever, and they're trying to attack the Bible, saying, look, the Israelites, they had this developed monotheism. At first they were polytheists, and then it developed over time into henotheism, which is the idea of one God over other gods, right? And then they got just a full-on monotheism. So it wasn't that God revealed himself to them as the only true God, but it was over time. But when you understand the grammar, the Hebrew grammar, that is easily disproved, as we see here. Here it is not asa'u. If it was the Philistines speaking, they would have said asher asa'u, or asu, pardon me, asu. There's no schwa there. The hay's gone and it just becomes a shurik. Asu Elohim. That means gods they made. You guys with me? So I really like that. I love how the text is so specific, capturing their thoughts like that, the way they were thinking, because you might miss it. I don't know, depending on how the translations decide to translate it. So, all which God did le Moshe, for Moshe. U le Yisrael. So, why is this u here? Just quick reminder. Why is it u and not ve? Do you guys remember?
Bump.
Right, it's vav, okay. Why is it u? Why did we change it to u, pointing?
MVP bump.
Okay, almost.
No two shoes together.
There you go, there you go.
Labial.
That's right.
Labial.
No, it's not labial. It's the no two schwas in a row. I'm glad you're thinking about labial, though. We'll get to that in a bit.
Verse.
See, because lamed is not a labial, right? You don't make that with your lips. Look. That's your tongue on the roof of your mouth, right? La 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 la. Right? So it's even where we get the Greek word to speak, lale or lalon. So the reason is you cannot start the word with two schwas in a row. And so if that happens, this is a different rule. The vav will change to u. And that's the only vowel sound that can start a word in biblical Hebrew is the u, the full u. Don't get confused. If you have a word that starts with aleph, like over here, or ayin, and you might say, wait, that's got a vowel sound, ah. That's only because we don't pronounce those consonants anymore. Originally, the ayin and the aleph, they had a sound. We just don't pronounce them anymore. So it seems like it's starting with a vowel sound, okay? So, u le Yisrael, and to Israel, amo. What's the o at the end of am? What's that? What's amo mean?
His people.
Very good, his people. Ki hotzi Adonai et Yisrael mi Mitzrayim. Because hotzi Adonai, so this is from the verb yatsa, all right? It's a pei yod verb, which you guys were asking about last time. That's supposed to be a yod, what I drew there. And so verbs that begin with yod, oftentimes that yod will go away, or it will change to, in ancient times, what was a wow. Wow, the wa and the ya, they both could be consonantal or act as vowels sometimes. So, and then we have the prefix hey, this shows us it's a he fell form. So it's to cause to go out. To cause to go out, which is to bring out. For Adonai brought out, or is bringing out, Yisrael, Israel, mi Mitzrayim. What's that me? What's the dagash in there? What's going on? Why is there a dagash in that mem?
Min Mishraim. So the noon is dropped, and that's why I have compensated by a dagesh in the mem,
Excellent. Everybody heard
in the
that?
second mem.
Good. The word is mean, meaning from. And when it contracts with Mitzrayim, the noon causes the mem to double, but the noon disappears. Just like in our example in English with in plus legal. Latin in meaning not, plus legal meaning legal, became illegal with two L's, and the N went away. Same thing, the Hebrew N, the noon, goes away and causes doubling. Mi Mitzrayim, from Egypt. Good. Verse 8, that's 2. Vayikach Yitro chotem Moshe et Tsiporah eshet Moshe. This one, you have to get used to. You asked about this last time. This is lamed, is the verb. It's lamed, kuf, chet. So that's lakach, which is to take. And the little dagesh in there is telling us that the lamed, he didn't want to be outside and he hid inside. So this is a vayiktal form. It's the reason it's a instead of o appears because the guttural at the end. Gutturals attract the sound. So and he took. Who did the taking? Yitro. Yitro took. Yitro who? The Choten Moshe, the father-in-law of Moshe. Who did he take? It's going to point to us who got taken. Tsiporah, right? Tsiporah, Eshet Moshe.
Tsiporah.
Yep, the wife of Moshe. Achar shulucheha. And this is where the text is ambiguous again. So ambiguous. So, shulucheha means divorced her. That's one meaning. After he divorced her. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I have a problem imagining that Moshe Rabbeinu, this super humble guy, the most humble guy in the world, we're told, right? He's a prophet of God. God doesn't tolerate anything Moshe does, right? God approves of everything Moshe does except when he hits the rock, right? So Moshe is acting correctly. So I do not think that he divorced her. It doesn't really bode too well with me that he would divorce her. But instead, we have the Midrash that says that when Moshe met Aharon, his brother, in the desert, and Tsiporah was with him, that Aharon says, "Who are these?" And he says, "Oh, this is my wife, and these are my kids. This is my baby, blah blah." And Aaron says, "What are you doing? We're trying to leave this place, and you're bringing more in." And so the Midrash says that Aaron said, "Send them back. You can get them later, right?" And so the Midrash tells us that Moshe sent his wife, he sent his family back to his father-in-law, so that they wouldn't have to be part of the whole troubles in Egypt. So I think that's probably more likely. Because it does mean divorce, it also just literally means to send out, right? To send out, right? And so also, why would Yitro be showing up and saying, look, and the text is also telling us, Eshet Moshe, Moshe's woman, right? She's not his woman anymore if he divorced her. So that, the way that the text is telling the story, I think is impossible to translate this as he divorced her. Even though there are a couple of rabbis who believe that he had divorced her. Verse Gimel. Ve'et shenei vaneha. Okay, so this is interesting. Here we have a new verse, but the 8 belongs to the previous thought. Right? The 8 belongs to this. See? He had sent her away, and he had sent away shnei vaneha. Or it can belong to Yikach. This one. Probably it belongs to Yikach. So Yitro brought Moshe's wife and also Shnei Vaneha, her 2 children. Asher, whom? Shem HaEchad. Okay, so how would you translate the Shem HaEchad? How would you guys translate that?
The one.
Shem HaEchad. Okay, HaEchad is the one, but Shem HaEchad, I want to translate the whole phrase.
The name of one.
Good. Okay, the name of one, and then to make it sound good in English, we have to say was Gershom, right? Because remember he said Ger Haiti, I had been a sojourner, like a foreigner in a strange land, right? Sham, there. Ki, because here it's telling us. Amar, he said, Ger Haiti be'eretz nochriya. Ger is a foreigner, a foreigner. It comes from the word gul. There's actually 2 meanings of gur. There's 2 different gurs. Gur 1 means to sojourn. Gur 2 means to terrify. So we're not saying I was terrified. He's going to name his kid Terror there. Can you imagine such a name? So it's for certain he means foreigner. So a foreigner I was, be'eretz nochriya, in a foreign land. And this is ending in a hey. Who knows why this ends in a hey? This is an adjective modifying this noun. So who can tell me why we have a hey at the end? What is going on?
Land is feminine.
Yes. Good job. That's right.
Oh,
Land is feminine, even though it doesn't look like it, right? It's tricky. It ends in sadi, not in a hey or in a tav, so we don't know unless we know. Go ahead.
is it a directional hey?
Nope. Nope. Good question. If it was a directional hey, it would have gone on the noun. The adjectives would have to take directional hey.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would have said. So if he's saying he's traveling towards, like he's going to say, I'm going to the land, to a foreign land. He could say, Ani holech artsa nochriya, like that. You see? Only the noun has that hey locative, or the hey directional as you call it. That's fine. Okay. All right. So continuing. Everybody understood? Eretz is feminine, so this modifies it as a feminine adjective. Verse Dalit. V'shem ha'echad Eliezer. Okay, what's Shem ha'echad again? It's like the name of the other one, right? It's literally the name of one. The name of the one and the name of the one. It's just how Hebrew says things. You could also have said Achera if you wanted to, but or you could have said Seir, like the less significant one, right? The Bechor is the most significant. Was Eliezer. So now we're going to get the reason why his name is Eliezer. Eli, what's Eli mean? Eli, Hemdi, Husana
God.
ve'avatitalam. Okay, the El is God with the suffix.
My God.
Yes, my God.
My God.
Good. And Ezer, you guys know Ezer. Usually this comes off as Ezra. You don't really see this too often in the masculine form like that. It's kind of like we have the word Yeshua with a hey at the end, and we have Yesha, and they mean the same thing. One is just kind of a masculine way to represent the noun, and one is feminine. So Ezra or Ezer means help. And then we get the text telling us why. Ki Elohei Avi be'ezri leyatzileni mechayev par'o. Because, we have a nice little construct chain. What's this chain mean? Elohei Avi. What's Avi, other than a Hebrew name? I know a guy named Avi, but other than being a...
Father.
That's right. Father
My
is
father.
Yes, good. So it's my father. So is it definite or indefinite?
Definite.
Great. So Elohei Avi means what?
The God of my father.
The God of my father. Exactly.
The God.
The God of my father.
Exactly. So the whole chain has to be definite. You have to say the on God. The God of my father. If you're just somebody's God, somebody's father's God, you could say Elohei Av means a God of a father, right? There's no way, remember, in a construct chain to make the first word definite and the last word indefinite. So you cannot say the God of a father using a construct chain. You do that differently. You have to use a lamed for that. So it's a different kind of construction. So constructs can only be all definite or all indefinite. That's the only choice. Okay. Be'ezri. Ezri. So we already learned that Ezer means help. So Ezri is my help.
Remember,
Almost.
I helped it.
Yeah, with my help or in my help, something like that. The God of my father, with my help or in my help. Usually, when we have something coming before the verb, this thing is used instrumentally, right? It's like by means of that. So being my help, how was he my help? Vayatzileni. So this is the verb natsal. Natsal. The noon, that's a terrible noon, I apologize. That's not a kaf, that's a noon. But that's what that dagesh is in the tzadi. The verb is noon, tzadi, lamed. And he's a pay noon verb, and you guys have been exposed to this. When the verb starts with noon, it oftentimes assimilates in here with the same phenomena that we saw up here with min Mitzrayim becomes mi Mitzrayim. The end sound likes to assimilate a lot. And so there he goes. He doubles that letter instead. Okay? So natsal means to snatch up. That's the literal meaning, to snatch up. Like God is looking down and he snatches somebody up. But it has the effective meaning in context of to rescue. Right? And he rescued Ni. Who is Ni? Where are the knights who say Ni?
The sword. From the sword. Me.
Me, that's right, me. He rescued me. Mecherev, good. You already got the from the sword. Now look at
From.
this. This is a nice example of from. So up here, we've got from
Yeah.
with the dagesh, and here we have it with a tseri, right? So what's going on with the tseri? Why do we go from short vowel chirik to long vowel tseri?
Yeah. Because the cat cannot receive a dagesh. So
Exactly.
you lengthen the first letter.
Exactly. You guys got that? The noon tries to go in here. Chet says, no way, Jose, I'm not doubling. So the noon has no place to go. He comes down, and that short vowel chirik becomes a longer vowel, tsere. Good. From, and this is actually a construct chain. From the cherev of Paro, of Pharaoh, right?
Sword, sword of Pharaoh.
Yep. So it's also fair if you want. You can also just translate that from Pharaoh's sword. If you want to be kind of less hyper literal, that's totally fine. Same meaning, right? From Pharaoh's sword. Okay. Verse Hey. Any questions so far before I plow through? All right, good. Vayavo Yitro Choten Moshe Vanav Ishto El Moshe. Okay. Let me change colors. All right, so what does Vayavo mean? What was Vayavo?
From bow to come.
The,
Yet,
yes,
and he came the father-in-law.
that's right.
It's a Bob conversive.
Yes, exactly. You're both right. Very good. Yep, so it's from Bo, like we say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. And Yavo means he will come. In the Vav conversive, correct, makes it and he came. So the subject, excuse me, is again Yitro, Choten Moshe. So then Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, came, Uvanaiv and his children. We say banim, it can mean sons or it can mean children. Some people memorize it just as sons, but that's a mistake. Again, it's one of these. It's an example of how Hebrew has words that are all encompassing, or they can be more specific, right? Like we had with the tumors or hemorrhoids, right? It can be all encompassing, any kind of globular looking thing, or it can be that or something else. So same thing with banim is children, right? But if it's in opposition to banot, which is only meaning daughters, then it's sons, right? It takes on the more specific meaning of sons. Just like malacha means any kind of work, but if it's juxtaposed with avodah, then you've got the idea of labor or even the white collar, gentle type of work. Okay. Ve'ishto. Okay. What's that mean?
His wife.
Yep.
His
Wife.
wife.
And his wife.
And his wife.
Yep. And his wife.
And his wife.
El Moshe. Unto Moshe.
To Moshe.
Yep. El Hamidbar. Asher hu Chonei Sham Har Elohim. Okay, so unto the wilderness, right? Hamidbar is wilderness. It does not always mean desert. It's just the idea of an uninhabited area, right? Certainly in context you can say desert when it's clear that they're in a desert, right? Asher hu Chonei Sham Har Elohim. And this is a little bit strange. So literally it says which he or that Chone was in camp, or there's no time involved. This is just a participle. This is an active participle. Chone is like camping, right? So it could be future, it could be past, it could be present, but we understand this narrative is in the past. So which was camped, sham, there. And now the Hebrew doesn't even give us an at. We don't have at. It just says Har HaElohim. What does Har HaElohim mean?
Mountain of God.
Yeah, the mountain of God, right? The mountain of God. Because the last word is definite, right? So it's a little bit odd. So you can get the idea. This is where you probably have to make a second pass to make it smoother, right? So he brought the family to Moshe into the wilderness, and then Asher is going to take on more like a where he, going back to Moshe, probably not it, probably he, was camped there at the mountain of God. Sometimes you have to massage it a bit to make it cleaner in English.
Rab, this time Ha Elohim is definite God.
Yeah, yeah. The God. Yep. But that could mean the gods if it's pagans talking, because this word Elohim is strange in that way, right? It's a plural type of form, right? So it's a lot of grammars. They when it's talking about the one true God, they call this the plural majesty, like the plural of majesty. Like sometimes even in other languages, we'll see the queen or the king is referred to in a plural sometimes, right? So, for example, like you might hear the Queen of England say, "We are not pleased," right? She's talking about herself, but she's a we, right? Because she's the queen, right? And so you have a little. There's some theories that that's why this happens in Hebrew, but the important thing to notice is that whenever there's a verb, right, it's going to be in the singular, right? And if we use a demonstrative adjective, it's going to be who. It's not going to be him, like the Philistines called the gods of Israel him. We see my favorite example of who is in when the prophet Elijah, he has that nice showdown with the prophets of Baal. It's probably one of my favorite parts in the Bible, right? You remember the fire comes down and licks up the water and burns up the sacrifice, right? After the prophets of Baal failed, and uh, and then the people, they all shout out. It says, all the people shouted out, Adonai, hu ha Elohim. Adonai, hu ha Elohim. Adonai, he is the God. Right? Hu ha Elohim is what they say. But if it was Philistines, they'd be saying, Hem ha Elohim. They are the Elohim. You understand? There's that nuance there. So even though it does have this notion of the plural of majesty referring to God, uh, I think it's more likely that it's reflecting an understanding of his complex unity or compound unity, if you will. Well, the whole Father, Son, Holy Spirit sort of thing, or however we want to interpret that. I personally think that's what's happening there. But you could make the argument it's just the plural majesty, right? But nevertheless, when it's important and we need to know, we say who, referring to, in this case it's Moses, right? But in the example I gave with Eliyahu, it's with Elijah, it's God that the who is referring to. Okay?
A question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question. Yeah, the Elohim, is that a construct chain?
Yes. Construct chain. Yeah, maybe I should mark it. Here, let me. There we go. That's why it's the mountain of God. And you'll see. I think it was Tet asking. I'm not sure who was asking. You'll see that before about the Ha here. You'll see Israelites refer to God both as just Elohim and as Ha Elohim. I think maybe Ha Elohim might be a bit more prevalent, right? Specifying the God, right? But this is kind of interesting. Egyptians did this too. This is Egyptian speak also. So when they're talking about a particular God, they would say the God also. So it's also kind of interesting the language that's used by Pharaoh when he speaks to Yosef also in the name that he gives him. It actually has the God in there, like the God is pleased. So okay. Verse 6. Vayomer el Moshe, ani chotencha, pardon me, ani chotencha, Yitro, ba elecha. It's kind of interesting. And it was said to Moshe, I, your
I am your
father-in-law,
father-in-law.
Yitro, ba elecha, have come to you. Someone's microphone is making some static. Please mute. Thanks. I'm still hearing it. Yeah, for some reason my controls are different today. They seem to keep changing things that go to meetings, so I don't see where my mute all is. Ve'ishtacha, what's this one? Ve'ishtacha, what's that mean?
Your
Ve'ishtacha.
wife.
Yeah, that's right.
And your wife.
Yep. Eshit becomes isht when we put the suffix on it. Right? And your wife. Ushene, again it's u because two schwas in a row, not allowed. And the two vaneha, her two children, ima, with her, resigning. Vayetze Moshe. There's a static still. Likrat chotano. Vayishtacho. Vayishaklo. Vayishalu ishlerehu leshalom. So Yatsa is to go out, right? So then Moshe went out. Likrat. So this is not to call them. This is a homograph. It's written the same way as kara, to call. It means to meet. This is the same word that the wicked Pharaoh who enslaved our ancestors used when he says, if somebody, what happens if war befalls us, right? He's uses this kara, like war happens, basically. So this is to meet in this context. This is infinitive construct plus the lamed. So to meet. Choteno, his choten, his father-in-law. Vaishtachu, and he prostrated down. Did he worship his father-in-law? Should we translate this worship? No. He prostrated down. He showed him respect, just like the wise men do before Yeshua HaMashiach, just like various students of Messiahs do to him at various times. They'll bow down before him, acknowledging his kingship. In this case, Moshe, the prophet, shows extreme respect to his father-in-law by prostrating down. That means he stretched out his arms on the ground and put his face to the ground in front of his father-in-law. And then Yishaklo. So this is from Nashach, Nashach, and that's what's in here, the Dagesh and the Shin. So Nashach means to kiss. Don't get it confused with Neshech or Nashach, which is to bite. A little bit different. Okay, so, and this is a Nifal, so, pardon, it's not Nifal. Sorry. It's just a pay noon verb, the noon with a sign. Then he kissed Lo to him. Vayisha'alu ish l're'ehu. So this is an idiom, a Hebrew idiom. Ish l're'ehu means one another. One another. Literally it says a man to his fellow, right? A man to his roe. A roe is like a neighbor or a fellow, right? It can be friend, but it just means one another. So then they asked each other the shalom concerning shalom, seeing how they are. How are you? Vayavo ha'ohela. And they came, and here's your hey locative or directional hey, towards the tent. Verse chet.
Then,
Go ahead. Question?
yep. None.
Oh, okay. ויספר משה לחותנו את כל אשר עשה אדוני לפרעה ולמצרים על אודות ישראל. Then Moshe recounted, he related, he told to his choten everything which Adonai did to Pharaoh and to Egypt. Al odot means for the sake of, right? Like literally on top of, because is what that means. On top of, because. So concerning, you could say because of the concern for Israel. Et kol hatila'a asher matzatam baderech vayatzilem Adonai. All of the trouble which matzah is to find. Matzatam, what's happening here? Hold on, let me think for a second. Matzatam. Why is it that way? Mitzah, mitzatam. Mitzah. Huh. I'm befuddled. Hold on. What's happening here? Mitzah. Well, if we just break it apart, matzah, that's he found. And matzah would have been a pre-tonic comet here, so it became a shwal when we put on this ending here. So the that's them, that's them. I just am not understanding why we have a hey here, a feminine ending here. That's throwing me off a little bit. So, but anyway, at least we can understand the meaning. I'll come back to that. Which had found them, right? Okay, sorry. This is feminine over here. It's trouble. Trouble is the thing that found them. That's why it's feminine. Okay. Yeah, that threw me for a second. I was thinking Moshe, like Moshe's the one who found it. Okay, so you understand what's happening here? So matzah, I'll just write it here since I know what the heck I'm talking about now. So matzah is to find, unless we go with the Ugaritic meaning, which means to overtake, like to capture. Matzah. Okay. If it's feminine, matzah means she found, right? She found. And I'll just do here, this is a pre-tonic commentary. She found matzah. But then when we add the suffix mem on the end, those feminine hays, they become ancient tavs. They go back to the ancient tav. right? And the accent has moved further, so this becomes a schwa. The pretonic comments becomes a schwa. So that's what's happening. Okay, that's why it's kind of an odd looking form. So mitza'atam. So the trouble had found them, baderech, on the way. So meaning, the complaints, the grumblings, all these kind of things. Vayatzileim Adonai, but Adonai had natzaled. He'd snatched them up. Okay, any questions on any of that? All right, continuing. Vayichad Yitro al kol hatova asher asa Adonai LaYisrael. And this is a word for joy that's not very common. It's chadad. This word chadad. So you don't really see this that often. It's like to be happy, right? So, uh, and Yitro was happy concerning all the goodness which Adonai had done Yisrael for Israel. Asher hitzil, how? Asher, you have to be flexible. Sometimes it means like when or how, even though that's not the primary meaning which you learned. How hitzilo, he had natzaled him. Him meaning Israel. Miyad Mitzrayim. And here we have a construct at the end. Yad. What's Yad Mitzrayim mean?
Question.
Okay.
Yeah, the Itzilu is singular.
Yes.
And again, in the English, it's translated as them.
Yeah, because it sounds weird.
Although there's a footnote,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, although there's a footnote that is literally him in the footnote.
Oh, it's nice. They put a footnote in there. Cool.
So that's a collective sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Like a collective noun. Exactly. We see this sometimes too with Israel and other places in the text. It'll be treated as a him or an it or whatever. Yeah. Although it's possible that this actually could be referring to Moshe, right? That Yitro could be rejoicing about the goodness which Adonai had done for Israel. How he, yeah, no, it's got to be Israel. Never mind. I was thinking you could go back to Moshe also. Nah, Israel. It's definitely Israel. How he had rescued or caused, really it says caused him to be rescued, which is interesting. I guess he caused him to be rescued by sending Moshe, right? And then this last part, look, we have a construct chain. Yad Mitzrayim. What's that mean? Yad Mitzrayim.
Hand from the hand.
That's
From the hand.
nice. So because it's Mitzrayim, it's definite to the whole chain. So we have to say the hand, right? So literally from the hand of Egypt. And hand, you'll see in Scripture, it can mean something like custody as well. Custody, authority, power, right? Which makes sense. If you're in somebody's hand, they've got control of you. Okay. All right, and this is our last slide for the first Aliyah of this week. Verse Yod. Vayomer, Yitro, Baruch Adonai Asher Hitzil Etchem Miyad Mitzrayim Umiyad Paro. What a great guy. And Yitro said, blessed is Adonai, who snatched up, who rescued you all, Etchem, from the hand of Egypt and from the hand of Pharaoh. Asher Hitzil et ha'am mitachat Yad Mitzrayim, who rescued the people from under the authority of Egypt. And here I'm going to say authority because you're not really under a hand, right? So from under the authority of Egypt. Verse Yod Aleph 11. Ata yadati ki gadol Adonai mikol ha'elohim. This is beautiful faith statement. Now I know that Adonai is greater. Okay, so this is the mem of comparison. If you use an adjective, gadol, tov, yafeh, katon, any kind of adjective, big, small, handsome, whatever, strong, chazak, and then you have a mem, like from, the from is the thing that you're comparing to, right? So this is the equivalent of the er in English, right? So in English we say greater, right? Big-er, smart-er, pretty-er, and then there's some exceptions. More handsome, you don't say handsomer, right? they'll know you're not a native speaker, but whatever. So you put the on the end. So the way we do the in Hebrew is with the mem of comparison. This is the mem. So when you say, literally it says, for great is Adonai from all the gods, right? But what he's saying is, now I know that Adonai is greater. Here's our than all the gods. So you see, before you're asking about Ha Elohim being the God, meaning Adonai, but here Yitro is using it to mean the gods of the nations, right? He's saying Adonai is greater than all of them. So we don't know for sure if this means that Yitro is now a monotheist or if he's just a henotheist. Maybe he still believes that there are other gods, but he knows that Adonai is the most powerful because of what he demonstrated. Although tradition tells us he was a monotheist. Actually, maybe I'll share that. We have time, a little bit of time. The Midrash, there's a Midrash that tells us that Yitro was, I think this is in Brexit Rabbah, that the reason that Moshe had to save Yitro's daughters from the shepherds, remember when he flees Egypt and he shows up and the shepherds' daughters are they're being kind of bullied by the shepherds, and then Moshe kicks their butts, and and then that's it. And then they go back and they tell their father, "Hey, an Egyptian saved us." And he's like, "Well, where is the man? Why didn't you invite him? I have no sons. Get him back here. I need to marry you off." So they bring him back. So the reason they were alone, shepherding isn't usually a woman's job, right? And the reason they were alone, even though he's supposedly the Kohen Midian, the priest of Midian, is because the tradition tells us that he had become a monotheist. And so he refused to do offerings to any gods except for the God of heaven, right? And so because of that, the people despised him now. He was kind of like the heretic priest or something. And so they would harass his daughters, they'd harass him. It was like an excuse, the evil, to do any kind of bad to this good man who was a monotheist. So anyway, it's just a midrash. It might not be true, but that's our tradition about Yitro. So continuing on. Okay, ki vadavar asher zadu aleihem. Considering the davar. What do you think davar? What does vadavar mean? How would you guys interpret that?
The
Davar.
matter.
Okay, davar is matter, right? Why is it the matter? How do you know it's the matter?
But because of
Because the
uh,
article pay.
Yes, yes, very good. You guys saw that? There's a definite article and there's also a patach here, right? So the footprint of the has been left behind, right? So in the matter or concerning the matter, asher zadu aleihem, in how or in which zadu. So this is actually zadad, I think is the root from this. Zadad, it's to be insolent, to treat badly, to mistreat. So how they had mistreated aleihem upon them. We actually get a noun from the zidayon is insolence. So okay, yod bet, that's 12. Vayikach Yitro chotem Moshe olah uzevachim leElohim. So again we have our lakach, right? Lakach. Then Yitro, he always gets the full title. Yitro Chotem Moshe. He's never just Yitro. He is, but not here. Then Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, Lakacht, he took, an Olah. What's an Olah? You guys remember what an Olah is?
to rise up.
Yeah, that's from the verb to rise up. It's a kind of offering. What's an Olah?
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Offered.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's an Olah. This is noun. He took an Olah. And you're right. It is from the verb to rise up. This is a whole burnt offering. A whole burnt offering. The
Offering.
reason it's whole burnt is because most of the offerings, the priests would eat, right? They'd eat. Or some of them, like the Shelamim offerings, the offerer would also eat some, right? Everybody's getting in on this, right? We're having fun with our God, right? He gets the smoke and we get the meat, right? But in the case of an Olah, nobody benefits except God, right? It's all given to him. It's totally burned up. So it all goes up is the idea, right? So that's an Olah. But you're right with your etymology. It's from to go up. Uzevachim, okay? Zevachim means sacrifices. This is where we get the word mizbeach,
Sacrifice.
right? So a zevach is a sacrifice from the verb zavach, to sacrifice. And when you put a mem in front of it, it's like the agent of that thing. Oftentimes the noun means the agent of whatever the verb is. So a mizbeach is an altar. An altar. It's a thing on which you sacrifice. Lelohim, to God. Certainly not to gods. Vayavo Aharon v'chol Ziknei Yisrael L'chol lechem Im choten Moshe Lefnei Elohim. Okay. Then Aharon came. And not just Aharon, and all the Ziknei of Israel. So here we have a fairly long construct chain. All the Ziknei
These
Yisrael.
elders.
Yes. All the elders of what? Israel. Good. Lechol. Okay. So why? Okay, this is an infinitive. Okay, so you take the infinitive construct and you put the lamed in front of it. This means to eat.
To eat.
Yep.
To
Why?
eat.
Why do you guys think there's a segol in under that lamed? What is going on with that? Seems like a weird thing to be happening. Because usually we put the lamed and we
Uh,
put a schwa,
it's the
right?
same
Assumes
principle.
repetition.
What's that? What's that? Go ahead. What repetition?
Uh, it's the same principle with the hate, the
Not to
definite
squash.
article. When it's followed by a guttural, you use a
Yeah.
segol. Is that it?
Nope. Nope.
Copy the
What are you saying? Ate, go ahead.
It follows the rule for the definite article, the hey,
No, no, no.
and when it's followed by a guttural, no.
Nope, not that, not that. Nope.
Okay.
no to swash again, so
There
it
you
will
go.
just copy the compost. Wow.
Yes. Yes. You hear what she said? She said you can't have two schwas in a row in the beginning of the word. And look here.
Yeah.
This is a kind of schwa, right? It's a composite schwa. See? It's chatif sagol, we call this one. And so if you try to put a normal schwa in front of this, it's not allowed. Instead, it lengthens to take the vocal sound of the composite schwa. So we just take the vowel part of that schwa and copy it over here. So here we have le'echol. That's why. Okay? But I like how you think with the guttural. Actually, the reason why this has the composite schwa is because it's a guttural. So you weren't totally wrong there. There's a line of thought that was right. But the right answer is two schwas in a row at the beginning. Okay? L'chol lechem, to eat bread or food. Im choten Moshe, with the father-in-law Moshe, lifnei Elohim, before the God. Okay? Any questions or comments? Hope some of the material we covered was interesting to you guys. We had a few new grammatical concepts in there. Okay.